Introduction to the Starry Sky of the Magic Tower. As a specialist and enthusiast in astronomy, it is difficult to imagine that humans live alone in the universe amidst the vast number of stars in the night sky. Open your eyes again, but you are already in a magical world based on 8 power elements. Knowledge, power, authority, faith, wealth, dexterity, perception, and mystery. Looking up at the starry sky of another world, is my hometown also among these billions of stars? Searching for possible ways home. Perhaps it will take a lifetime, maybe 10 lifetimes, but it is always a hope. Chapter 1. Tower of the Great Sage. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. The semi-collapsed 3-story stone tower is covered with vines and moss, and crows nesting at the top protrusion are chirping loudly. The young bird learning to fly stands by the nest, flapping its wings. The chirping of insects that rise and fall not far away is tempting birds to search for food. The stone pagoda surrounded by the forest, even if half-tilted, still stands proudly. The small open space around the stone pagoda seems to indicate its inviolability. But the plants climbing on the tower, or the small animals living here, show a close side. 3 people, passing through the path of the forest with scattered sunshine, suddenly appeared in the open space and dazzling sunlight, making it difficult for people to adapt for a while. The destination of this trip was when the stone pagoda, bathed in the sunlight, became accustomed to the sudden bright light in its eyes. In the year of the Aramaic calendar, 723, crossing to the 12th year, Gabriel, who holds the title of magician. Lin. Tripwood finally has his own magic tower. Teacher, is this the tower of the great sage? Following behind, as one of the apprentices, the blonde and white-skinned girl asked in an inexplicable tone. Carrying a backpack that was almost bigger than oneself, with an expression of admiration, disappointment, or a combination of two, I looked up at the scenery in front of me. Another girl with dark hair and brown skin and 2 fried dough twists braid said coldly, the location of the magic map is shown here. If you doubt it, stick the contract certificate on the door panel and see if it can be started. I know those things. It's just. The blonde girl hesitated and looked at the elderly person beside her, saying, I'm a bit surprised. What you're trying to say is disappointment, Harumi. Rubbing the girl's fluffy blonde hair, Lin paid no attention to the comments of others. In fact, that is also the idea in his heart. However, in reality, it is impossible to demand more. Slowly approaching the huge wooden door. Perhaps still protected by magic, the wooden door maintains its original function, heavy and thick, making people feel intimidated. The iron bars and rivets on the door are not brand new and shiny, but there is no rust on them. The dark metallic color seemed to have been baptized by countless blood, telling the fact that it was impossible to forcefully break through this door. Take out the craft paper roll from the Magic Association from the portable scroll box, which is recorded with special energy patterns to obtain control of this magic tower. Of course, it must also be used to open the door. There is no sesame door opening spell above, and the use of the scroll is like a key. Just unfold it and stick it onto the door. The energy surged through the wooden door and finally reached Lin Na's right hand holding the scroll through the scroll. A special colorful mark was burned on the back of the hand before disappearing beneath the skin. At the same time, the door opened in response. The creaking sound of opening the door, like the tower's self-talk, murmurs about its own years and rich history. The gradually opening door gap gradually revealed the hall of the magic tower. The interior was not as dark and dilapidated as imagined, but rather had decent lighting. A few beams of sunlight fell in, illuminating most of the area. Lin thought for a moment and couldn't help but understand the large opening at the top of the tower. Do you want to go straight in, teacher? Harumi looked up and asked the man who had been hesitant to enter the tower. Feeling the brief message of the imprint feedback, Lin knew that the damage to the magic tower meant that even if the gate was completely intact, other creatures would still be living here as nests. And it is also a small settlement with more than 10 lives. More detailed information cannot be obtained unless one enters the core room of the magic tower to truly control everything. Looking back at the two apprentices, Lin thought for a moment and said, "Kaya, you'll stay this time." Pointing towards the largest tree on the edge of the forest. "We are establishing a position over there." After following her teacher for several years and becoming familiar with the habits of each other's adventure journey, the brown-skinned girl arrived at the designated location and pulled out her short wand. The spell murmured softly, and the shaping technique, under the command of the wand, raised the land to form a small cave in the shape of a half-screen. The cave is not deep enough to accommodate 3 people's luggage, as well as a small mound covered by the young girl Kaya alone. She applied another listening magic to herself, which could hear whispers in the air and the sounds of animals. Although it is only a rough idea and not very clear, it already serves as a warning for outdoor adventures. Finally, she took out a crossbow that was almost as tall as her from her backpack, used a winch to pull open the bow arm, and placed a thumb-sized crossbow arrow. Everything was finally ready. As for the 2 people preparing to enter the magic tower, they put down their excess items and only carried a lightweight scroll box. In addition to his cane, Lin also held a short sword that weighed his hand. The girl Harumi is a small round shield and a dagger. Then both of them bestowed upon themselves 3 sets of magical spells. Might, Stone Skin, and Wind Barrier. The first 2 are easy to understand, but the last spell can pop open ordinary bows and arrows or other types of throwing weapons. Yes. That's right. These 3 people are a combination of magicians and magical apprentices. The most common way for wizards in this world to fight is to add a buffer to themselves and then engage in tough hand-to-hand combat with enemies. A magician with a weak physique, who can only hide behind the warrior and rub fireballs, does not exist in this world, or in other words, that kind of person will soon be summoned by God and become a memory and negative teaching material for everyone. In addition, Lin also took out an additional wooden ring and sprinkled some magic stone powder in the groove of the stand. Summoning the low voice of the magic doll, summoning a mud doll that is nearly 2 people tall. The summoning object that comes at the cost of magic stone powder certainly does not have much intelligence or powerful abilities. But as a pathfinder and flesh shield, it is more than enough. He handed the ring to Harumi, which also represented handing over the command of the mud doll to the girl. The 2 of them walked towards the magic tower in the order of mud dolls, Harumi, and Lin. Using clay dolls to lead and lure enemies, Lin serves as the rear hall, while also guarding against potential enemies from behind. This is the tactical formation commonly used by these 3 masters and disciples. A low-level summoner from the elemental realm, the mud doll has no feet and its existence must be connected to the ground, soil, or slate. In short, it cannot jump or swim. It can actually move at the bottom of the river. Although having a large physique may have the disadvantage of obstructing vision, it can also prevent the vast majority of attacks from the front. Harumi skillfully controlled the progress of the mud doll and headed straight into the tower. Do you still remember the layout of the Tower of the Great Sage? Go straight to the core chamber, and after controlling the magic tower, it is relatively easy to eliminate the remaining enemies. Lin clearly stated the goal and direction for this round. At the same time, it also reminds the girl not to bother searching for possible enemies. After mastering the tower core, any creature will have nowhere to hide. 2 people cautiously advance together. Years of low-level adventure experience have made Lin clear that all creatures in this world are dangerous. Even herbivorous animals have 1 or 2 deadly attack methods. Give someone a hard blow and then try to escape, that's what the creatures at the bottom of the food chain in this world will do. It can also be said that species that only know how to increase their survival rate by escaping have long been extinct. So in the wild, when encountering any living creature, it is not too cautious to be cautious. The young girl walking ahead has the same understanding, and the countless lessons she has learned in recent years have made her deeply engrave these knowledge in her mind. Entering the first floor, the 2 did not rush forward, but stopped to observe the condition of the first floor. The layout of magic towers is very simple, unlike most castles, which also shoulder the function of defense, so the internal passages are designed with twists and turns. Especially since this tower has a history of thousands of years, the magical tower pattern during that period was even simpler. The hall has a diamond-shaped layout, with one room in each of the 4 directions. Although the eastern part has been damaged and the walls are still there, the ceiling and the second floor are severely damaged, which is also the main part that allows light to shine in. In the center is a spiral staircase that leads to the upper level. The layout of the second floor has multiple rooms connected by a circular walkway. And all the core rooms of the magic tower, as well as the rooms used by the tower owner, are located on the top floor, which is the part on the 3rd floor. Usually also the strongest part. And the damage to this tower is in another part that does not belong to the core room. The 4 rooms on the 1st floor have intact doors, so the possibility of ambush can be ruled out. And the damaged part on the east side only has a few skylights open, without any climbing paths, so it can be temporarily ignored. Within the magic tower, as long as there is no permission from the tower owner, the room door cannot be freely opened. Those uninvited guests who stay here can only enter and exit through the damaged opening, unable to open or close the door. Controlling the mud doll towards the 2nd floor, Lin and Harumi fell several steps behind. If the creatures living here have intelligence, this place is the best ambush location. As expected, just as the mud doll was about to emerge, it heard several popping sounds of hard objects falling to the ground, as well as the unique scream of goblins. Chapter 2. Uncivilized race. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Goblins, little ghosts, goblins, there are many different names for this tribe, and compared to their civilized counterparts, uncivilized goblins can be said to be cancer cells in this world. Being able to mate with females of all races of Homo sapiens, with a short pregnancy period, multiple births at once, and a growth period of less than a year, it has the ability to pass on the family line, and of course, its lifespan is not long. Lack of creativity, but knows how to plunder and use tools, including weapons. Individual experienced goblin shamans or elders are no less cunning than humans. Based on the internet slang articles that Lin had read before his time traveling, this article discusses the reasons why elves and dwarves, if they exist in reality, will definitely be replaced by humans, using their growth period and proliferation ability. According to its discourse, the goblins of this world are undoubtedly the next era, replacing the protagonist of humanity in this world. Most individuals are not powerful, but hunting them can be quite troublesome. If left unattended, it will cause considerable harassment and even loss of life and property to human settlements that are relatively sparse. For powerful adventurers, uncivilized goblins are the last enemy they want to encounter. Killing is very troublesome and there is not much reward. However, such opponents are the most common enemies encountered by these 3 masters and disciples. With their ability, as long as they are careful not to encounter accidents, they are capable of crushing the other party. This is also a bad habit brought by Lin Song before his time traveling. When playing games, he would rather use his golden finger than his golden finger, but he still needs to practice until he reaches the full level. Then, he can easily crush all his opponents and slowly enjoy the storyline. I also don't like playing with my heartbeat, pressing the bottom line, and fighting until the last drop of blood is just enough to kill monsters. Because the latter is too prone to capsizing, the plot must be rerun from the record point. Once or twice is enough, coming a few more times can be very annoying. After arriving in this world, there was only one destiny, but there were no record points, so all his actions were even more conservative. And goblins are the easiest ones to receive commissions, because there are not many people willing to fight, and it is tedious and fast, so there are particularly many. Encountering it now, it goes without saying, just kill it. Uncivilized goblins are definitely unwelcome tenants. The mud doll, who was the first to climb the 2nd floor, engaged in a fierce battle with the goblins at one end of the passage. The short stature appears extra flexible in the narrow space. Compared to the goblins jumping up and down, the mud puppet just swings its heavy arms and then forcefully smashes them down. Perhaps waving it 3 or 5 times won't even touch the edges of these agile little monsters, but as long as it touches them, it's still hand and foot damage. Compared to the mud dolls that have already entered the intense battle, the two people standing on the spiral ladder are actually more calm. Lin struck the ground with his left cane twice and recited, "Light." The magic shone brightly on the first floor. He, who had been prepared beforehand, quickly adapted to the sudden light and saw every corner clearly. Most maze explorations and attacks that cause team breakdown come from behind. Even though it is difficult to have an ambush on the first floor, the sudden light can occasionally explode 1 or 2 overlooked hidden monsters. But this time, it's clean behind the scenes. Harumi did not immediately rush up to the second floor, but instead held the dagger tightly in both hands and held it flat on his chest, staring intently at the gap between the first and second floors. The goblin on the other end of the channel did not join the battle with the mud doll, but waited for the next enemy. However, the subsequent enemies did not come up the stairs for a long time, and the sudden light made them puzzled. The goblin lurking at the forefront poked his head out and looked clearly at the blonde girl holding a dagger, calmly inserting the weapon into his eye socket. The apprentice-level giant power technique allows the girl's strength to be like a bear, swiftly inserting a dagger into the root, quickly destroying the enemy's brain while also squeezing out another eyeball, bursting out plasma. Harumi then used the goblins as shields and rushed up to the second floor to block the incoming attacks, clearing himself a small space to use his hands and feet. Looking at Lin from behind, even though he has watched countless times, he still feels a bit uncomfortable. Yes, the way wizards fight in this world is so brutal. Even girls under the age of 10 who become magic apprentices, after a few years of adventurous life, can still slaughter other creatures with unchanged expressions at the age of elementary school students. There is only one reason why the magic martial arts school's gameplay has become mainstream, which is the auxiliary magic in this world, with considerable buff effects and duration. Instead of constantly bombarding enemies with fireballs, covering oneself with buffers, stomping on them, and then hitting them head to head with each stick, the spiritual satisfaction of the former is incomparable. Fighting broke out on both sides of the passage, and Lin Kai calmly walked up to the second floor. The narrow space made the two of them walk side by side, and if they were to attack each other, they couldn't bear to stand by friendly forces, so Lin didn't rashly join the battle on either side. Harumi's direction is temporarily safe, and the possible danger is from the mud puppet side. In a state where the commander is also busy with battle, the puppet simply follows its instincts and attacks the incoming enemy. The defense of a magic doll comes from the materials that shape its body, and of course, soil is one of the lowest levels. As long as it is cut off or detached from the body, it will turn into nothingness and return to a discrete state of elements. That is to say, the mud puppet is just a useful cannon fodder, used as a tool to transfer some attacks when dealing with large numbers of enemies. The elemental sprite attached to it is rewarded with the magic stone or magic stone powder used at the beginning of the summoning. They will only last for a maximum of 1 day or until they are dispersed. When everything is over, one will abandon the body that was temporarily formed in the material realm and return to where they came from. So on the battlefield, you can always see these temporary summoned magic dolls, getting smaller and smaller, and then completely disappearing. Lin is well aware of this, so the battle in the direction of the mud doll will be taken over by himself. And this time is coming even faster than expected. When the remaining mud dolls turned into clay dolls and were stomped out with 1 foot, Lin saw that perhaps he was the biggest opponent of this time. The goblin. Some stronger matrices occasionally give birth to goblins with exceptional talents. They have nothing to do with being thin and small. They have a body twice the size of an ordinary goblin, thick arms and legs, and contain strength beyond that of ordinary humans. However, the one in front of me was much more disheveled, with several wounds on my body still stained with pus and blood, and a deep bone visible wound on my chin, making that already ugly face look a bit more ferocious. Even a small portion of the old and worn-out leather armor remains hanging on the body, devoid of any defense. On the other hand, the huge bone in his hand was quite threatening, possibly the leg bone of some powerful warcraft, and the overflowing magical power made people shiver in waves. This goblin commands 2 ordinary goblins around to use blow arrows. Generally, these types of weapons will be poisoned by them, increasing their killing power against humans. However, for Lin, a legitimate magician, the wind barrier that had been bestowed upon him from the beginning easily pushed the blow arrow away. Blowing arrows does not have any effect on a human wearing a robe, which seems to have surprised the 2 goblins quite a bit. But they didn't think much, let out a strange cry, and then grabbed the stick and attacked. The thin and small body of ordinary goblins allows them to fight in parallel on this narrow channel. But this did not pose a threat, as Lin's was cane clubbed to the ground and easily withstood the attack on one side. At the same time, the powerful spell of the mage level, combined with a swing of the short sword in his hand, went straight towards the thin neck of another goblin, cutting it off in one fell swoop. After solving one of them, Lin looked at the other goblin who had retreated to the wall, with a frightened expression that was indescribable in disgust. Bullying the soft and fearing the hard is the most common trait among these uncivilized low-level races. So Lin didn't say much, he kicked his leg and directly kicked the goblin's head. In an instant, it splashed red and white all over the ground, needless to say, it also got a lot of dirt on my feet. All these cruel scenes seemed to provoke the ferocity of the goblin, causing him to hold his bone high and wave it directly. Although Lin has bestowed upon himself the stone skin technique, he has no interest in using the heavenly spirit cover to receive the wolf tooth stick. The horizontal cane blocked the attack of the bone bud, and the short sword went straight down from below. With a huge increase in power, Lin was like poking tofu without any obstacles. But there were several holes on the body of the goblin, spraying blood. To deal with enemies, one must have no compassion, especially for uncivilized ethnic groups. Goodwill cannot bring good results. Lin was very clear, so after his last sword was inserted into the goblin's belly, he did not pull it out. Instead, he dragged it aside, causing the goblin's intestines and stomach to fall all over the ground. Yu reading www.uukangshu.net. The massive bleeding and severe injuries left the goblin on the ground, but he still glared fiercely at the person in front of him, as if trying to scare them off. However, this cannot deter people like Lin who have already realized what kind of attitude is necessary to survive in this world. He stepped on the undulating chest of the goblin, inserted his short sword into his opponent's neck, spine, and then cracked. Resolve the enemy in front of Lin and take a brief look at the condition of Harumi behind him. Although there are more enemies on the girl's side, there are no higher-level enemies like the goblins, so we have entered the final stage and are making the final blow to the goblins who are still panting. So Lin walked straight towards the 3rd floor. The heavy stone gate remained intact as before. The materials used to build a magic tower are rare and expensive, which also ensures its reliability and strength. Perhaps it will still be destroyed by a huge external force, but it is clearly not something that goblins can do. Although there may be some damage to the 3rd floor from the appearance of the tower, the core room is certain to be intact. Because several previous tower owners have confirmed the integrity of the core part of this tower to the Magic Association. As for the damage, it occurred earlier in history. So as long as the stone gate is intact, there is no need to worry about enemy ambushes behind it. Stick the right hand with the imprint on the stone door and recite the secret mantra silently. This dusty magic tower has once again welcomed its new owner. The magical energy diffuses along a special pattern and connects to the energy pool that maintains the lowest level of operation. The feedback energy drives the mechanism of the stone gate, slowly raising it with a rumbling sound. The tower core ventricle, which was originally pitch black, lit up with dim lights. As the stone gate rises, the lights become brighter. When the passage was fully opened, the magic chandelier hanging high in the center of the tower's core ventricle was fully lit. Chapter 3. Tower Master. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Following her teacher into the core room of the tower, Harumi looked around curiously. She, who has been staying at the Wizarding Academy, has never entered such an important place before. Until today, her teacher was given the responsibility of guardian and had her own magic tower, which gave her the opportunity to witness the extremely mysterious place in the mouths of ordinary people and apprentices. However, for Lin, as a teacher, this is also the first time. Although he has already learned the knowledge of operating most functions, it is really the first time he has touched the real thing. But before becoming familiar with various operations, there is one important thing to do. Lin arrived at the control console of the magic tower and pressed his right hand on the center position. The imprint on the back of his hand corresponded to the magic array, floating in mid-air in front of him. The upright mercury energy pool, which was like a huge mirror connected to the heterotopic surface, began to wave and output waves of energy, completely awakening everything in the magic tower. Now, the Tower of the Great Sage can be considered a true awakening. Place your long-prepared special magic stone in the center of the console, the core of the magic formation, and the programming depicted in the stone quickly takes over all the functions of the tower. High-level magic towers have tower spirits, like the world before crossing, known as artificial intelligence butlers. However, as a historic building with a history of 1,000 years, the Tower of the Great Sage lacks advanced technology. All functions of the magic tower require meticulous operation and command from the tower owner. And this millennium of time has not passed in vain. Countless successors have already invented countless technologies for similar situations to enable wizards to inherit and master the magic tower more quickly, becoming the new tower owner. Lin referred to the techniques left by his ancestors and the data from the Tower of the Great Sage, combined with his knowledge before traveling, and created the simplest programming to control the magic tower, just like writing driver programs for computer hardware. That's right, as a PhD in physics and astronomy before crossing the river, I had to write special computer programs entirely by myself. In addition, without a wife or son, I had to rely on watching Love, Xinqing, Unli, to create a sweaty mansion and manage my own. It was easy to become a magic programmer in a different world. Putting aside the feeling of pride or frustration, Lin Qi used the temperature monitoring function inside the magic tower to create a technology similar to thermal imaging, combined with the 3-dimensional map inside the tower, to quickly see the presence of unwelcome guests in the magic tower. The recently deceased goblin's body temperature has not completely dissipated, so it appears very clearly in the image formed by the energy pool. However, there are still significant differences compared to living goblins. That is a room on the east side of the first floor with a damaged structure. Although it was difficult to enter and exit there during observation, it does not mean that there is no hiding place. 3 smaller hotspots, perhaps the larvae of goblins. Lin thought so. From the number of this population, there are no female prisoners and no food reserves, and based on the previously observed situation, they probably escaped from other places. Unfortunately, most of the rooms are enclosed magic towers, which are not very good places to live. Harumi. Calling out to the curious girl who was still looking around, Lin adjusted his robe and said, "Go help Kaya move things in. Next, we need to tidy up the tower to be habitable, and we still have to be busy." "Yes, teacher." The blonde girl responded and walked briskly to find her peers of similar age. As for the remaining goblins, Lin decided to handle them himself. On the one hand, the magic tower has just taken over, and there are many things that can only be done by oneself. Tell the girl to deal with the remaining enemies, she will have to climb through the narrow wall hole to enter the hiding room, and all she needs to do is open the door. Turning on all the lighting in the magic tower, Lin walked down the first floor and opened the door that was originally sealed off. 3 goblins, who were not just born and not yet adults, huddled together and huddled in the corner of the bright room. Seeing the incoming person, the most basic survival instinct of the creature made the three little goblins show expressions of fear and begging for mercy. It is undeniable that no matter how fierce and ugly the creatures are, they are still quite cute in early childhood. Lynn smiled kindly and then unleashed a fireball spell, directly burning the small doll that was held in a ball into ashes. Next, we need to deal with the remaining corpses and collect spoils of war, so we don't have much time to care about how the goblins and children behave. The magicians in this world are not incapable of throwing fireballs, but their efficiency in throwing fireballs is not as good as their own buffer. However, when a fireball can solve all things and no longer encounter other battles, one fireball will still be much faster than adding auxiliary magic to oneself and engaging in hand-to-hand combat. In summary, efficiency comes first. Peel off valuable items from the dead goblins in battle. The most valuable thing may be the bone bud with magical fluctuations. Lynn then used the light object technique to gather all the corpses in a room specifically designed for casting artifacts. The complete recovery of the magic tower energy pool, and the furnace in the casting room also ignited a blazing flame. Throw all the dead goblins into the blue flames ignited with the purest magical energy. Almost at the moment of contact with flames, the body vaporized and disappeared, leaving no ashes. After tidying up everything, Lynn controlled it with his imprint to maintain the minimum amount of flames on the stove, preventing it from completely extinguishing and not needing to turn on all the firepower. On the first floor, apart from the casting room, the damaged room where the little goblin was hiding was quite spacious, but there were two prominent holes on the floor. It seems that it can be used as a warehouse. There is also a room with several long tables and several large stoves built on the wall, which seem to have been converted into a restaurant and kitchen by an unknown tower owner before. On the wall, there is an active planet map that clearly shows the state of the world's stellar system. The sun is centered, like the sun on Earth. The planet in which this world is located is in its fourth orbit, known as the Enchanted Earth. In addition, there are 5 planets, making up a total of 6 planets in this stellar system. The planet map on the wall represents the current positions of each planet. It is also the only decoration that has truly been preserved from 1,000 years ago in this Tower of Great Sages. The remaining original items have long been taken away, dismantled, and even handed over to the Mage Association by the previous tower owner. This picture can be preserved only because the picture, mechanism, and wall are integrated, and this wall is an important load-bearing component of the magic tower that cannot be removed. The last room consists of scattered weapon racks and humanoid wooden racks of armor. However, only a few rusty wooden-handled iron gun heads remain standing on the rack. The 8 rooms on the second floor of the magic tower, one on the east side, have completely disappeared. The 2 on the left and right are severely damaged, and the 2 adjacent rooms are also damaged, leaving only 3 intact. One is a library without a collection of books. If the tower owner dies, the things here will be taken away by the members of the Mage Association, or if the tower owner voluntarily gives up the right to guard the tower and leaves, the books here are mostly brought and stored by themselves, so of course they will also be taken away. The remaining 2 are meditation rooms with different functions, each with a focus on magical powers. 2 rooms were damaged, one of which was clearly designed for residential use, but it was probably just a small dormitory provided by the previous tower owner for apprentices. The other room looks like a research room, but apart from a few shaky cabinets and a few decaying large tables, there's nothing more. The 2 severely damaged rooms were used as balcony gardens, with both flowers and birds. However, no one has organized it for a long time, and now it is overgrown with vines and weeds. Without using a cane to sweep down the tall grass that is about the height of a person, one cannot see where to stand. There are 3 rooms on the 3rd floor. The room on the east side is also damaged. It seems that the previous tower owner treated it as a miscellaneous room. The core room is blessed and protected by special forces, so it remains intact as before. The other intact room is the ritual room, where all summoning creatures from other sides and practicing destructive magic are practiced. So the ritual room has a barrier, which provides equal protection for the structure and the core room. As the main activity area of the tower owner, it must be the highest level of the magic tower. Rest, sleep, eat, and research are all solved in the core room. Most of the rooms on the lower floors are provided for apprentices or for storing things that the tower owner temporarily cannot use. The top platform is equipped with the most important facilities of each magic tower, an attack magic array. Each tower is different, and this Great Sage Tower is equipped with a light bomb attack array, with an effective attack range of X days and a maximum attack range of XXX days. In terms of Earth units, it can be roughly understood as an effective attack of 10 kilometers with a maximum range of 30 kilometers. The most important task of all magic towers in the world of mystery, in addition to providing residences and research for wizards, is to guard the area, limit the growth and disturbance of wild creatures, monsters, and uncivilized populations. UU reading www.uukangshu.net protects the survival and development of the civilized world. So to ensure that the magician has such awareness, although the magic tower can be privately owned, it is not allowed to be inherited. When the tower owner dies or leaves, ownership of the tower is transferred to the association, which then selects the next suitable person. Of course, not everyone is willing to give up a powerful and expensive magic tower. More than 500 years ago, a student of the Dharma saint claimed the inheritance rights to the Tower of the Great Sage after his teacher passed away. The association formed a multi-district alliance and together they broke through the Tower of the Great Sage, killing all the magicians and apprentices who were trying to resist. The huge hole on the second floor of the Tower of the Great Sage is a relic left by the war at that time. And none of the subsequent tower owners carried out repairs. It's not about alerting future generations, it's purely because magical materials are expensive. After a certain period of time, the magic applied to a general material will dissipate, and even cause the material itself to annihilate. Only magical materials can accept the permanent transformation of their appearance through shaping techniques, depict magical formations, and even increase their strength exponentially with the blessing of energy. Materials with this characteristic are naturally not readily available, but rather quite rare. Rare means high prices. To what extent? The vast majority of magicians only earn money without spending their entire lives, and they can probably afford to build one floor. Those who know more about financial management can build up to the second floor. The standard for a magic tower is 3 to 5 floors, depending on the identity and level of the first tower owner. That is to say, most of the owners of magic towers on the mainland today are entrusted by the Mage Association to inherit existing magic towers. Or it could be a master disciple who has passed down generations and built it with savings of over 100 years. Of course, assisting in the construction of magic towers with national-level financial resources is also the main source of new towers. Chapter 4. Reconstruction Ideas. You are listening at novelfull.audio. 2 little maids were sent to Kaya to tidy up the environment inside the magic tower, and Harumi was sent out to hunt for dinner tonight. This is the job that 2 young girls are each striving for, and Lin has no reason to disagree. Entering any magic tower, the effective attack range within X 10 days, 10 kilometers, naturally belongs to the territory of the magic tower. Unless this tower is built in the city, it will be confined to the interior of the tower. Since we are responsible for suppressing the local warcraft and uncivilized tribes, naturally the output here belongs to the tower owner. Unfortunately, in the association's evaluation, the Tower of the Great Sage has the lowest level of resources, with output below the low standard, but the level of trouble is above the middle level. After thousands of years, valuable things inside the magic tower have been taken away or destroyed by the previous tower owner, leaving only one historical value left. This world cannot engage in tourism industry, its historical value is useless. That is why the Tower of the Great Sage fell into Lin's hands. Because there are really no wizards who want to come to this place where birds don't lay eggs. Even though this tower was a powerful war fortress in the first sequence 1,000 years ago, today the tower has opened a gap, and most of the artifacts passed down have been lost. The ability rating of the Great Sage Tower has long fallen to the last sequence, and it is no longer as brave as before. Despite being rated as above average due to the troubles in their environment, the warcraft that actually operate within this range are all low-level group creatures. The added value of defeating warcraft is not seen in the eyes of highly skilled wizards, and the characteristics of group action also make low-end adventurers hesitant to approach, which is why today's awkward situation is so persistent. However, with so many drawbacks, there are also advantages. At the same time as obtaining the Great Sage Tower from the association, the application for renovation was also approved. As a semi-public magic tower, it is not something that the tower owner can manipulate as they please. For changes to the overall structure, approval from the association is also required to avoid anyone privately dismantling the tower and selling it as magical materials. In fact, such incidents have happened before, which is why there are relevant regulations. It can only be said that human greed is indeed infinite. For the association, the most ideal situation would be for the unjust leader to pay for the tower to be repaired. In fact, the resource output around the Tower of the Great Sage cannot afford the cost of renovation. Otherwise, it wouldn't have been so long, and the tower still maintains its damaged appearance. Lin's plan, in short, is to demolish the east wall and make up for the west wall. Discard severely damaged structures as materials, repair slightly damaged parts, and try to repair a sufficiently complete structure as much as possible. This idea has already been proposed in the previous application, but the actual practice requires on-site investigation to make repairs, and there is no guarantee of the final outcome. Generally speaking, such vague plans will not be approved. It is because this tower is too annoying and has been vacant for several years without anyone willing to settle in. Only then will the Mage Association open the door and let Lin plan. The only condition is that in the end, it will still be a 3-story tower and the magic tower cannot be flattened. Although the loopholes in the contract do not limit the possibility of slimming down the magic tower, Lin still conscientiously ignored this possibility. I don't know why the previous tower owners didn't think of a similar repair idea. From the records, it can be seen that the vast majority of people are worried that arbitrary modifications may damage the entire magic circle of the magic tower, making it unusable even if it is damaged. After all, it is rare for a tower to be damaged to this extent while still maintaining normal operation. While inspecting the situation at the scene, a large open book floated beside me, which was obtained from the association's Magic Tower log. It records the research and renovation of the Magic Tower by previous tower owners, as well as some insights and information on adding and removing artifacts. This book is the most frequently flipped book in recent times. The accounts recorded inside can be said to be dull and disorganized. The only fortunate thing is that the chronological order is not disordered, but there is no categorization. Looking at this record, Lin remembered the feeling of checking logs and debugging before. After actually seeing the condition of the Tower of the Great Sage, Lin had a rough idea of the materials. The first floor can be completely repaired, the second floor room can be restored to 6 intact ones, and the damaged room on the third floor is expected to be mostly demolished and made into a balcony, which is related to my next plan. If there are any remaining materials available, it would be to repair the 7th room on the 2nd floor. After having an idea in mind, the next step is to start planning. In addition to determining the construction sequence, it is also about rebuilding the energy transmission channel of the entire magic tower. At least the wall structures that are planned to be demolished must have their energy supply stopped, otherwise even a piece of debris cannot be moved. Perhaps electric motors are not my profession, so I cannot afford to play with nanofabrication processes. But as a talent in the science and engineering department, the super large circuit board with 3 floors high can still be understood. In Lin's eyes, the energy transmission structure of the entire magic tower is like a circuit board. The magic array of certain special nodes, like capacitors or resistors, plays a similar role. An energy transfer is nothing more than ensuring that the flow passes through each brick to enable the magical material to exert its characteristics. This level of cognition has been validated through small-scale experiments in previous years. Now it's just a matter of scaling up dozens of times to do the same thing. To modify the energy transmission route, the traditional approach involves starting from the control console in the core room and then making changes to nearby nodes. However, based on the program input by Lin in the special magic stone before, all tasks can be completed more easily. And with the knowledge of mixing two worlds, the program written can form a more intuitive image in the energy pool to assist in one's own transformation. Of course, the program for detailed input and output needs to be further adjusted. Considering that this would not be a routine job, Lin did not intend to perfect the program. Use the habits before crossing, how convenient and how to come, and prioritize efficiency in everything. Afterwards, we need to improve the interface of the main control, and there will be a lot of time to do it in the future. After all, this is the place where I plan to live for the rest of my life. The brown-skinned girl Kaya has already organized the magic tower up and down. That is, first use the windward technique to blow the dust out, and then use the water collection technique to wash all areas once, mainly the blood, feces, and other dirt left by goblins and other unknown animals. After roughly doing it, she is doing detailed cleaning and decoration in the core room. This place will be the temporary residence of the master and apprentice, while the other rooms will be slowly sorted out in the future. The more troublesome ones are those wooden products, such as beds, bookshelves, tables, and so on. The previous tower owner did not have the luxury of using magical materials for these things, but instead processed them from nearby trees. As long as there is no one to take care of, these things will be destroyed quickly. So Kaya's other task is to calculate what else is useful, what needs to be discarded, and what needs to be remade. The big box used for storing things is actually very sturdy, but it's a bit dirty. After a little tidying up, I neatly packed the valuable and infrequently used items in my luggage, as well as some belongings, into the box and replaced them with a lock. This completes the task. Harumi's shout came from downstairs, and she, who had just caught a few rabbits, was calling for help. Kaya handed the key to the box to her teacher and walked down with a few pots. The two girls have become familiar with these things, and it is indeed the environment that makes people grow. Nurturing a beautiful place is called a happy childhood, which only renders the child useless. Just before the two girls tidied up the rabbits and cooked them into a pot of rabbit meat soup, Lin made the first modification to the magic circuit of the entire tower. Avoid the structures that are scheduled to be demolished, make reservations for the parts that need to be repaired, and optimize and improve the entire circuit system accordingly. It looks like we can start construction this afternoon, teacher, it's time for lunch. Harumi cautiously walked into the core room, holding the two handles of the pot. Kaya followed behind, carrying several washed bowls and wooden spoons. In fact, there is no lunch habit in the world of mystery, but the fat in the fat house is not without a reason, and the most important thing is that it cannot tolerate hunger. After breakfast, Lin had to endure until dinner. How could he bear it? He brought the habit of lunch into a mysterious world. As for my current figure, I can still maintain a symmetrical figure but not gain weight. It's just that there is too much physical labor in the world of mystery, and I can't gain weight. Wild coriander paired with rabbit meat can also be considered delicious when stewed. Listening to the two girls' aspirations for the future, Lin's mind relaxed for a moment. This is also considered a home that truly belongs to oneself. After eating half full and taking a little breath, Lin commanded his two little disciples. Firstly, clean out the areas that need to be repaired, mainly by removing the damaged bricks and preserving the complete structure of the bricks. Afterwards, just fill in the gaps with new magic bricks. The cleared waste bricks will be concentrated in the casting room, and new magic bricks will be made using molding techniques combined with the magical flames in the furnace. This unskilled job will be the job of two girls. The combination of the powerful technique and the light object technique makes the girls' tasks count as part of their labor, with only going up and down the stairs. They have not yet learned the magic of floating or flying, and their apprentice-level control cannot make them move their bodies very accurately. It's more practical to walk with 2 feet. Lin's job is another one. He walked out of the magic tower and went to the surrounding woods to find suitable wood to make several sets of molds. The traditional production process of magic bricks is to use a ruler to cut a rectangular prism on the original stone, which is slightly longer than 16 dil, about 16 centimeters, slightly wider than x dil, about 10 centimeters, and slightly higher than 6 dil, about 6 centimeters, and then use shaping techniques to trim the surface. What is that little bit of stuff? When Lin was looking at the data, that was all he had in mind. Some people say it's the width of a finger, while others say it's the thickness of a fingernail. There are various opinions. And the skill level of the producer lies in this, little by little, grasp, which can achieve perfection. Because the quality of energy transmission and the characteristics of receiving energy from magic bricks are closely related to the shape and size of the bricks. That data has long been recognized as the best size. As for that little bit, the measurement standards in the mesmerizing world are very broad and powerful. It's similar to the recipe of Earth cuisine, with 1 spoonful of salt, 2 spoonfuls of sugar, and 1 spoonful of soy sauce. Most recipes do not kindly remind beginners whether a spoonful is a tablespoon or a teaspoon. It always needs to be cooked to know if it's too salty or too sweet. Of course, there is also a saying that directly using the dimensions of 16 dil, x dil, and 6 dil can also achieve good results. But for a high-achieving science and engineering student who has traveled across the Earth, it's hard to tell that this is exactly 1.618, with a bunch of golden ratio constants with decimal points. With the standard measuring scale provided by the association and the precision of his own processing, Lin is not sure if the golden ratio is the final answer. But it is imperative to produce several sets of molds with the same specifications to accelerate the production speed of magic bricks. Anyway, as long as the size falls within the range, the effect will not be much worse. Chapter 5. Poor Mountains and Poor Waters. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Building bricks is a technical task, and if the young disciples cannot do it, only the teacher can personally do it. It's not without a reason to put in so much effort. Although in terms of current construction technology, magic bricks that meet the golden ratio should be the most ideal material, the Great Sage Tower is a product of thousands of years ago. The people of that era were definitely not particular about this aspect, creating a different structural part with bricks of different sizes, which made those who were interested in repairing later look big. The only fortunate thing is that the magic bricks that Lin Fun instructed the 2 girls to remake are slightly smaller in volume than antique bricks from 1,000 years ago, regardless of which part they are. There is no requirement for restoring the lost world to its old state, and the volume is slightly small, making it easy to fill gaps. However, in the end, there will always be some small cracks that do not fit the size of bricks. If there are 2 girls doing homework at this time, they will come and ask for help. It takes time to explain the actual situation to someone, come up with a way to fill it in, and then explain it until the 2 girls understand it. Even though they were instructed to follow suit, the 2 girls still inquired about everything. As for the reasons behind it, it is unknown whether they really don't understand or pretend not to understand because they can't stand someone being lazy. As Lin came and went, he realized that he came quite quickly. Who calls someone who has not yet become a teacher? They usually don't look like a teacher, and only when they want to be lazy, they will confidently say reasons that are not valid. After a few attempts at catching fish, one's hands and feet are exposed, and if one tries to hold it up, they won't be able to hold it up. So Lin could only touch his nose and join the ranks of labor. Anyway, at the speed of 2 magic apprentices, it takes a lot of time just to make new magic bricks from waste. Someone joined the construction, but overall efficiency has improved significantly. After working hard for a few days and seeing that supplies were running out, the agreed-upon caravan when leaving the association had not yet arrived. Eating wild game every day was not a solution, so Lin had to instruct his disciples to buy some food from nearby villages. That's right. In the territory within X days under the jurisdiction of the Tower of the Great Sage, there exists a human village. According to the legal principles commonly used in the world of mystery, villages and towns within a certain territory are under the jurisdiction of that territory and have various obligations. In fact, the people of the mesmerized world are not at all like the ancient people of Earth, whether it was medieval Europe or pre-modern China, who were submissive to nobles and scholars. Due to the threat of wild monsters and uncivilized races, the military power of the people is also quite strong. Except for various warriors, mercenaries, and magicians known as adventurers wandering the entire continent, the vast majority of villagers, regardless of gender, are qualified soldiers as long as they wear leather armor and pick up swords. After all, without such strength, it is impossible to protect oneself outside the city walls. Although noble lords have the responsibility of guarding their land, it does not mean that ordinary people can receive protection from noble lords in the first time they face danger. Most of the time, we still have to seek our own blessings and pick up weapons to defend the safety of our lives and property. This has also created a strong folk culture in the mesmerized world. And the lord's responsibility is to prepare the army and participate in war. On the other hand, it is responsible for managing and mediating disputes. Taxation, military service, and labor require the recognition of the Lord by the people in order to expect them to be willing to cooperate. If you want to bully men and women, or use noble weapons to force people to obey and accumulate wealth, once the reputation of the evil Lord is spread, it will only attract some righteous demons and cyberbullying on earth. At most it will be a mouth-watering expression. The righteous demon in the puzzle world really knows how to raise a sword to greet, and then he cuts off the head of the evil lord. Then, among the wandering poets, another story of chivalry and righteousness is added. Even worse, some small lords who were canonized in remote areas took office with only 3 or 5 followers. It is often heard that before enjoying the power of nobility, the local people bury themselves in the deep mountains and forests. If the central government sends troops to investigate, most of them will get a sentence. The new lord thought he was very powerful and ran to the forest to hunt warcraft, but he didn't come back. Such words are unverifiable but reasonable enough to be impenetrable. Simply put, it means raising unruly people in impoverished mountains and rivers. To put it more bluntly, the village under the jurisdiction of the Great Sage Tower is home to such a group of unruly people. The mysterious world can be described as vast and sparsely populated. People are a kind of wealth. The development of wasteland by humans not only symbolizes the expansion of the scope of civilized activities, but also the reduction of the scope of warcraft and other dangerous activities. So the inexplicable destruction of the village will attract the attention of the upper echelons of power in the lost world, and it will not be a good thing for the initiator. Not to mention the justice ambassadors who are among the people. Since the magic tower is the most powerful strategic weapon, the light bomb attack magic array is not useful because it is used to slaughter villages. We cannot kill people casually, so we can only rely on gentle means to gain the trust of the people. Huayro needs to have background power, political support, and most importantly, profit buying. With so many advantages, should a magician fall here and become the tower master? Recalling the rumors heard before departure, the attitude of the previous tower owners towards that village was indifferent, and the previous tower owner sadly abandoned the tower and fled. Before departure, Lin decided to continue the previous actions of the tower owner and continue to ignore the human gathering place. In the environmental assessment of the Tower of the Great Sage, the level of trouble was rated as above average, and that village is truly indispensable. Now, forced to deal with each other for the sake of food, Lin said in his heart that it is impossible not to worry. However, it was not directly negotiated by oneself, but by sending out articulate Harumi and bringing money to buy food. For the sake of being such a cute girl, there shouldn't be a big problem, right? Lin thought to himself, perhaps it was to send sheep into the tiger's mouth. Anyway, once something is done, wait for the outcome. The remaining master and disciple became much quieter due to the absence of the most outgoing girl. Kaya herself doesn't like to talk, and Lin, a former fat mansion, is also a type of person who is not good at chatting. Suddenly, there was no one in life, and both of them became lazy, even their work efficiency decreased significantly. Then, at the expected return time, there was still no trace of someone, and the level of concern gradually increased. Lin cautioned himself not to be impulsive. Perhaps it was because the girl had a playful nature and delayed on the way. Until dusk, the master and disciple sitting at the entrance of the magic tower were angry when they saw someone crying and walking out of the forest. Or let go of it. Lin's heart is full of mixed flavors. What was hoped to not happen still happened, although it was not the worst case. The village under its rule had already shown its attitude, and the next response would be very important. The girl who cried and returned to her teacher's side looked very embarrassed. The clothes were torn and tattered, with multiple bruises and sword wounds on the body. The face was also disfigured, and the legs under the skirt were red and white stains. After Halumi went to that village, it was already very clear what kind of treatment he would receive. Of course, the money bag I brought with me, as well as a few unremarkable magical accessories on my body, were also gone. Soothing the girl's emotions, Lin didn't realize that he had to ask what had happened right away, but only instructed Kaya to prepare for a bath. Brushing your body at this time and soaking yourself in hot water can help stabilize your emotions. Lin closed the door of the magic tower and walked into the forest to search for herbs for external injuries and ingredients for dinner, while also considering the next countermeasures. The sky is dark, and the bright moon is rising in the east. The sun and moon in the mysterious world rise in the east and set in the west, and Lin was also quite surprised at the beginning of his journey. After seeing 2 moons in the sky, he was even more surprised. But 12 years is enough to get used to it and watch the moonlight. The only difference today is the smoke rising from the nearby kitchen, which is the location of that village. Rush over and make a big killing. From Harumi's tragic situation, it can be inferred that they have the means to control the magician. Although being able to deal with magical apprentices may not necessarily be able to deal with legitimate wizards, this is not a reason why Lin cannot find the culprit. After all, some people will be allowed to commit violence against an apprentice of the tower owner, which to some extent represents the attitude of the entire village. If you run to someone else's territory to seek punishment, you will definitely not be able to win over. To swallow one's anger and calm down, it also depends on whether the other party is willing or not. The reason behind the rumor of the former tower owner abandoning the tower is not only that the village has taken over the nearby resource output. The main thing is that after hunting warcraft, the fur and some bone and blood that can be used to extract magic potions are controlled by the villagers, making the tower owner of the Great Sage's tower's already barren income become nothing. Not to mention that the village has been untaxed for a considerable period of time, neither under the jurisdiction of the kingdom nor under the control of the magic tower, like an extraterrestrial land. The most tragic thing was that the former tower owner was forced to extract magic potions and nitrate the fur of warcraft, and all his gains were also encroached upon by the village. Even as a magician, he received a fixed monthly subsidy from the association, which was poured into his miserable unpaid labor life. No wonder they ran away in the middle of the night and headed straight to the east of the mainland, under another branch of the association. The Magic Tower Association in this area only discovered this exaggerated fact after discovering the magician who had logged in as the tower owner and running to other branches to log in. The seal of the tower is still imposed by a team of inspectors dispatched, and the abandoned Magic Tower log is also brought back. As for the ordinary people in that village, they dare not continue to use the facilities inside the Great Sage Tower after realizing it has become an ownerless object. As inspectors, wizards have permission to kill. The embezzlement of assets registered by the association is a matter of first killing and then questioning. Anyway, the physical death of the lost world is not true death. Imprisoning souls and creating various tricks are also the strengths of magicians. But Lin doesn't want to get into that realm. Since the people in this village seem to be planning to find another unlucky ghost as their laborer, and have also given them the courage to go down. How to deal with it becomes a problem that Lin cannot avoid and cannot avoid. Chapter 6. Provoking Provocations. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Everything seemed to be fine, and the master and apprentice were still focused on repairing the magic tower, but there were some changes in the focus and content of the construction. The first step is to repair the walls, restoring the magic tower to a completely enclosed state. The gate is already very sturdy, and it goes without saying that the entrances to the open area on the third and second floors are heavily reinforced. The defects in the walls and floors of the internal compartments have been temporarily shelved. Next is to repair and reorganize the defense system inside the tower. A magic tower is not like a typical fortress, where the internal passages are designed to be curved for defensive purposes, but this does not mean that the interior of the magic tower is free for people to come and go. Ninka 10 cities, don't attack one tower. This is the words left by a famous historical general in the world of mystery. Creating a maze by connecting ectopic surfaces or playing fireball step by step can be considered a child's trick. More wizards have their own brain teasers. Even after activating their defense function, they dare not wander freely in their own towers. However, as a monument from 1,000 years ago, the Tower of the Great Sage does not have the kind of defensive fortifications that destroy all existence. In fact, it can be said that there is no internal defense function, and it is not a magic trap that has been triggered and has expired, it is a mechanism that has been unusable for too long. What Lin needs to do is to fill in the colors on this blank canvas with his own ideas and existing resources. The latter takes priority. During this period, the agreed carriage and horse of the Chamber of Commerce finally arrived. In addition to transporting supplies, there were also bulky items that were difficult to carry with Lin's original residence, which were also transported to the Tower of the Great Sage by the horse racing team. This Chamber of Commerce was originally just a messenger for the association to contact various tower owners. Later, the contents of the transportation were not only letters, but also special items exchanged between the tower owner and the association, as well as subsidies given by the association to various tower owners. So the messenger became a caravan of horses. With the horse racing fleet, some tower owners request to help them purchase some things or send the output of the magic tower to somewhere for sale. So the fleet size has expanded. Helping others deliver too many items, the leaders of the association feel that they can make a profit by buying and selling the output of various magic towers and reselling them, as well as selling the goods needed by tower owners and delivering them to their doorstep. So the Chamber of Commerce was established. Other distinctions will depend on a certain differentiation, and the benefits will be considerable. So other branches have also followed up. To this day, the Chambers of Commerce under the Magicians Association, although they may vary according to their respective districts. The business scope is not limited to magicians, but also extends to ordinary people. But for the wizard who is the tower owner, there are various preferential measures. After all, for the association, mastering the magician who controls strategic weapons in various regions is a major task. There is no need to be distracted by small matters like money. On the contrary, having common interests makes each tower owner even more dependent on the assistance of the Mage Association. From Lin's perspective, what makes the logistics industry good is making money. The Magicians Association has integrated shopping platforms with logistics and started a unique business, making it difficult to make a profit. Earning money is inevitably eye-catching. But what kind of existence is the Mage Association? The use of force by various regional committees to eliminate one or two small countries is not a big problem. From the past to the present, there have been those who have heard of robbing association caravans, but those who have not heard of being able to survive even after robbing. Definitely destroyed, even the soul will be taken back and tortured for 100 years. Of course, the protection of the caravan's armed forces should still be displayed to avoid those who are not eye-catching on the road. Lin watched as he rode on a camel bird. A giant bird with better endurance, greater agility, and the ability to fly briefly than horses. Belonging to a type of warcraft. Warriors dressed in magical and spiritual light, protecting their chariots and horses in front and back, making people envious. This is the same feeling as seeing someone wearing an Armani suit, Rolex, and driving a Maserati on Earth. More importantly, those who can become caravan guards are definitely not ordinary people. Without any experience of rolling among the dead, one cannot receive a high salary from the association or any magical item on their body. Unfortunately, such force is not within the command of Tower Master Lin. The caravan guards do not intervene in local affairs unless someone steals their attention. If it's just a peek, they're just warning. Just like now, the gaze from the forest, which thought it was hidden very discreetly, actually fell into the eyes of these people long ago. That's why the guards maintain a semicircular guard formation, surrounding the vehicles and horses they want to protect. Lin also knows that the boxes and boxes of items brought into the magic tower from the carriage, although unable to know the contents, will definitely arouse some people's greedy thoughts. The silence of these days does not represent the calmness of the future. I am just holding on to the spirit of adapting to changes with immutability, waiting for the other party to take the initiative. The longer time dragged on, the more fully prepared Lin was, but he was not worried at all. All work is proceeding in an orderly manner. Until one afternoon when I was about to forget about those trivial matters, someone who couldn't hold their breath finally appeared. When 3 burly men wearing iron breastplates and carrying giant axes walked out of the forest, the warning system of the magic tower immediately sounded in the ears of the master and disciple. This kind of alarm always comes several times a day, but most of it is caused by wild animals running out of the forest. Staying in the core room for several consecutive days, Lin, who had redeployed the entire energy structure of the magic tower next to the control console, was hesitant to confirm whether the person on the monitoring screen displayed on the mirror of the energy pool was the target. It is not uncommon for wilderness adventurers to pass through magic towers and purchase magical items in the world of mystery, which is also one of the sources of income for many tower owners. However, 2 apprentices who have completed the magic tower structure project and are arranging furniture for each room happen to be staying in the core room. Harumi could tell at a glance that the 3 of them were from that village and the group leading the way in bullying her. Thinking of her heart-wrenching past, she couldn't help but shrink behind her companions, trembling slightly. Looking at his disciple's appearance, Lin sighed and reached out to touch his head, while mischievously plucking the hair of the 2 girls. He said, as planned before, go down and prepare. The carefully arranged hair was messed up, and the blonde girl forgot about that terrifying memory for a moment. Instead, she pouted discontentedly and looked fiercely at the culprit. On the other hand, Kaya, who wore 2 large braids, did not become too messy because her hair was solid, and she herself had a relatively calm personality. Pulling the sleeves of a girl of the same age, the 2 of them ran away. Lin silently turned on the tower's defense functions one by one, but the automatically triggered mechanisms were still closed. It is necessary for him to have a conversation with the other party first, determine his attitude, and then take the next action. I saw the magical light of the control console turn from green to red, instantly extending to all the energy nodes of the entire tower, then extinguishing and returning to the ordinary appearance of a stone building. All these changes have no signs outside the tower, just like its appearance for thousands of years. The gate of the magic tower is open. In the world of mystery, in non-war situations, the entrance to the magical tower during the day opens, indicating that it is a tower with a master. Adventurers in need are also welcome to purchase supplies or seek shelter. But in the eyes of the 3 leaders in the village, it's no different from seeking death. The former owner of the Great Sage's Tower, however, kept the entrance of the magic tower tightly closed day and night. Every time they were required to fiercely smash the door and speak threatening words, only then did the other party agree to open a small gap and insert their own person. Since the door is open today, they are not afraid to enter the magic tower. Watching the appearance of the first floor improve slightly, all the damaged parts have been repaired. The man standing in the middle couldn't help but lick his lips, imagining that the new tower owner is a fat sheep. New here, don't you know how to welcome the guests? For a moment, Lin thought he had returned to the period when he had just traveled and was looked down upon everywhere. Since being promoted to a formal magician, I have never received such treatment again. Even nobles or magicians with higher social status maintain a certain degree of respect. It seems that this game cannot be improved. Lin thought to himself as Yu opened the Tranchen magic formation and said, 3 distinguished guests, please go up to the core room on the 3rd floor. The 3 people in the surveillance screen showed disdainful sneers. Before going upstairs, adjust your weapons to the weighing position. The leader took out a dagger with magical radiance from his arms and hid it in the palm of his right hand. That should be the demonic dagger that Harumi once said pierced through her stone skin technique. The 3 of them were completely unaware that they were under surveillance and thought they were ready, so they walked up to the 3rd floor. Let Lin, who was watching the surveillance, be speechless for a moment. The monitoring system is derived from the concept of Earth and is implemented through the magic of a mysterious world. Although there are other magic that can produce similar effects, the complete monitoring concept does not exist in existing magic systems. So it's normal for the 3 people upstairs to be confused and unaware. But being in a magic tower with a controller, it is very abnormal to be so arrogant. Is it because the X was too weak? Lin guessed and thought. Closing the surveillance footage, Lin stood up and faced the direction of the stairs, silently waiting for the 3 of them to appear. The main issue was the 3 people's cursing voices, and there was no need to continue monitoring. Just listening revealed how impatient they were. Entering the door, before he could even stand firm, the largest burly man loudly said, "New here, your previous colleague had a pleasant cooperation with our village. I think we should continue our cooperation according to the previous method." What was the previous method? It's just that we produce raw materials, you can help us make magic materials. Well. Lin hesitated and asked, how much compensation can I get? What's the reward? The 3 strong men looked at each other and laughed, and one of them said, your ex was very kind and helped us for free. I believe your heart should also be very kind. Chapter 7. The Power of Life and Death. You are listening at novelfull.audio. This is not possible. The crystal powder and medicine used for processing also come at a cost. How can I help you without compensation? Why don't we discuss a cooperation plan that is good for everyone? Although Lin said that, he was more of a probe and didn't want to forgive the other party. The 3 people across from each other didn't say much, so they pulled out their weapons and threatened, I told you, the previous way of cooperation was very good, let's follow the previous method. Watching the person in the center even reveal the demon-breaking dagger, Lin couldn't help but be curious. I'm not wrong, it's just curiosity. Lin stretched his neck and asked, excuse me, do you really understand what it means to be in the wizard's tower? What kind of trump card does the opponent have to be so fearless? Lin thought very seriously. What's the point? Over the past few decades, who hasn't used this kind of collaboration as a wizard to become the tower master here? Do you agree or disagree? With a cold face, Lin's anger slowly rose as he looked at the 3 people cursing. Being a fat house before crossing time doesn't mean you're a loser who can't fight back or scold back. Thinking about the past rumors about the Tower of the Great Sage, perhaps the real situation is even worse than imagined. Human beings are both habitual and forgetful animals. From the other party's mouth, it is known that the previous tower owners have been eaten to death by the people in the village for the past few decades. They naturally believe that the next magician must also follow the same approach and serve them. Speaking of forgetfulness, it lies in the fact that even if the mysterious world values human life, it does not allow upper-class people to indiscriminately kill. Even if the military power of the people is strong, there will always be people who learn about good and evil, and then act chivalrous and righteous. But the world of mystery is ultimately a world of distinct classes, with nobles, royalty, magicians who study all the knowledge in the world, and master extraordinary martial arts. If there is class, there will be privilege. The king would not accept being cursed by a beggar pointing his nose in the palace. Marquises and counts also do not allow their lords to point fingers at them in their castles. Magicians are even less likely to accept that someone is shouting and killing at their tower owner in their own magic tower. Within the scope recognized as private residences, the privileged class holds the true power of life and death. That is to say, even if the emperor of the 5 great empires in this world is killed by the tower owner in a magic tower, it will be killed. The association will not send inspectors to judge whether the tower owner has violated any regulations. Of course, the empire can launch an army for retaliation, but that is only personal revenge and does not violate public law. So people in the enchanted world are always cautious when entering someone else's magic tower, fearing that if they offend the tower owner, they will die inexplicably and have nowhere to cry. This is also how Lin believes that the villagers in the village under the jurisdiction of the Great Sage Tower are so forgetful. For decades, their habit has led them to believe that wizards are easy targets for bullying, which has led to the situation where they first harmed Harumi and now invade and cause trouble. Listening to the rural people's inexplicable curses, Lin impatiently pounded the ground with his cane. Such a contemptuous attitude certainly caused dissatisfaction from the other party. Standing on the right, the more impulsive strong man wanted to charge forward, but was stopped by the person holding a demon-breaking dagger in the middle. The angry expression flickered with cunning, and the man may have understood that a formal magician, when prepared, is not so easy to bully. And today, including myself, there are only 3 people present, which seems a bit insufficient in number. He said fiercely, "New here, I advise you not to be disrespectful. You cannot compete with us. Give you a few more days to think and come back to hear your answer in 3 days." After finishing speaking, he pulled his 2 companions and prepared to leave. At this moment, with a loud bang, the door of the core room had already closed and the defense system of the entire tower was fully opened. The energy flowing on the bricks and stones formed strange and ominous patterns, which were terrifying to the eyes of the 3 villagers. One of them exclaimed to Lin in a daze, "You actually want to kill us? Aren't you afraid?" The cane clung to the ground, and a mercury droplet shot out of the mirror energy pool behind the forest, piercing through the speaker's forehead in an instant. There was only a small hole on the forehead, but a big trumpet-like opening behind the head. This is an improved magic from water archery, combined with axis rotation, to produce a rifle-like effect. The other 2 were still in shock. 2 young girls hiding in the shadows on both sides, holding crossbows, shot through the remaining 2 living people with 1 arrow each. Magic arrows fired by military crossbows are not like ordinary hunting bows, and ordinary people may run and jump with a few arrows. Especially the crossbow modified by Lin, coupled with being shot at such a close distance, both crossbows were pierced through. The person who persevered with the arrow fell to the ground without supporting it, and could only watch in horror as the crossbow and arrow head pierced through the chest from under his side and pierced through the iron breastplate. As for the guy who got hit by the water bullet technique and had a big hole in his brain, I won't say much, he's completely dead. The 2 of them opened their mouths wide and couldn't help but gasp for breath. They were so frightened that they couldn't speak and looked at the girl approaching in panic. Watching the 2 people swiftly drop their crossbows and draw out their daggers, Lin felt a guilty moment. On Earth, they are still in elementary school at their age, ignorant and easily deceived by perverted uncles to go see goldfish. In the mesmerizing world, he can effortlessly wipe his neck and put people to death without hesitation. Although past adventure experiences mainly focused on Warcraft and uncivilized races. But in some remote areas, I have also killed many people who are farmers in the village and robbers outside the village. Lin can only try his best to prevent the two girls from being too bloodthirsty. And this attitude of disregarding life and death is not only necessary for survival in a mysterious world, but also a manifestation of a qualified magician. Teacher. With a shout, the man in lament was called to his soul. Kaya calmly asked, "How should we deal with these three people?" After thinking for a moment, Lin said, "Hang it outside the tower to air dry." Although doing so is to warn some people who have ulterior motives. But Lin estimates that it is more likely that the urine in that village will be stimulated and lead to larger conflicts. But there's no need to worry about these things. As the common saying I often heard before traveling. If my head is shaved off, I won't be able to do it without washing. I just warned my two disciples to be constantly vigilant these days and not slack off. In the middle of the night, unexpected guests come to visit. Dozens of torches shone through the forest. In the surveillance footage presented by the mirror energy pool, there are men and women among the angry people. The gift in hand is not a gesture of goodwill, but a shining weapon. They have little discipline, no formation to speak of, and there is no visible tactical combination, they just rush forward in unison. However, it is commendable that at least this group of people knows to keep their voices down and speak as little as possible. Although these behaviors are seen in Lin's eyes. The magic tower gate is closed at night. The exterior wall of the tower has also been repaired, although it has not been restored to a complete cylindrical tower shape, there are no damaged holes for people to enter and exit. A group of people struggled to lift their heads, hoping to find a loophole and enter the tower, but only the three corpses swaying slightly in the cold wind caught their attention and added to their anger. Blood debt is bound to be repaid with blood. The anger in people's hearts reaches its peak in a certain accident. A man who couldn't see any intrusion windows, impatiently pushed the door of the magic tower and found that the careless tower owner hadn't locked it. This unexpected joy convinced everyone that the goddess of luck was on their side. Watching the surveillance footage, Lin pursed his lips. If it weren't for the fact that killing outside the tower and killing inside the tower are two different things, there's no need to secretly unlock your own door just now. In the picture, people who are confident in their victory are excited as if they have already achieved victory. Gently pushing open the narrow slit that was enough for one person to pass through, I peered into the first floor of the magic tower at night. Night lights were shining on the corner walls and stairwells, everything was quiet. Everyone rushed into the magic tower, preparing for the final attack, leaving only one person outside the door to prevent anyone from attacking from behind. This is the standard tactic for attacking an uncivilized goblin population. Constantly alert to attacks from behind. However, Lin couldn't help but have some grievances about attacking the magic tower in this way. It is indeed a group of people who have forgotten how terrifying the Tower of the Lord is. Confirmed that the person guarding outside the tower would not enter, Lin touched the control console with one hand. As I watched the interface of the touch panel keyboard rearranged to resemble before time travel, I felt a wave of nostalgia and familiarity. Gently tap the first function key, and the set trap routines will unfold in sequence. The partition from the first floor to the second floor is closed simultaneously with the entrance of the magic tower. Reading www.uukangshu.net is quick and catches people off guard, especially the dull sound that makes everyone understand that they have fallen into a trap. All the lighting is on, presenting a clear view of the ecology in the monitoring screen. Some curse, some beg for mercy, some are at a loss, some quickly turn around and try to open the door of the magic tower. In the next moment, 6 electric beams were shot out from 6 directions, wreaking havoc in the field. The power is not significant, and it is impossible to directly electrocute or blacken people, but it also briefly numbs everyone. Next came poison mist technique, and the goose yellow gas began to diffuse. After covering the entire floor, it gradually spreads upwards. The materials Lin possesses for arranging poison mist technique are not very toxic, they just make it difficult for people to breathe and tear uncontrollably. As long as you immediately leave the range of the toxic mist and blow the wind, the effect will naturally dissipate. But the premise is that there is a way to leave. The entire first floor of the Magic Tower has become a closed space, and all intruders were first electrocuted and paralyzed. Many people face down and fall to the ground. The pain of the impact almost makes the paralyzed body jump. Then the toxic mist drifted in. Even though they knew they needed to leave as soon as possible, no one had the means to move their bodies and could only watch the goose yellow mist inhale into their noses and lungs. No matter how weak the poison is, accumulating enough doses can still be fatal. The overall situation is firmly established. Lin looked at the only person guarding outside the tower, and after giving up knocking on the Magic Tower's door, he panicked and fled back to the forest. He mischievously messed up Harumi's hair again and said, "Go to bed first. We'll deal with the group of people on the first floor tomorrow morning. Hang them outside the tower to dry." The disciple, who was trying to express dissatisfaction with his pouting mouth, angrily played with his fluffy golden hair. On the contrary, Kaya simply disarmed herself and returned to the only big bed in the core room, falling asleep. Chapter 8. Completion of Renovation. You are listening at novelfull.audio. 43 people. This is the result of Lin's personal counting in the early morning. Considering that some people may have extraordinary talents and be able to stay in the poisonous mist for a whole night without dying, after purifying the air on the first floor, repairing the knife and counting the heads are done by themselves. However, the ropes in stock were not enough, so the two disciples decided to go into the forest to search for vines and tangle them together in several strands. The difference in length, whether by tying hands, feet, or directly around the neck, led to the hanging of over 40 corpses onto the exterior walls of the Magic Tower. Looking at the walls that almost covered the entire intact part of the tower, with a total of 40.6 lifeless and tragic corpses, Lin was not at all worried about the possibility of a plague. As he watched vultures and some carnivorous birds engage in a delicious feast, and even bird-shaped monsters in the forest quickly took a person and flew away, Lin suspected that in this remote place, these exposed bodies had a chance to rot. Lin looked towards the direction of the village and didn't know if the village could still stand in such a desolate place after losing more than 40 people. However, these people are all self-inflicted and there is nothing to sympathize with. Moreover, since the decision to develop the Great Sage Tower was made from the beginning, the village was not considered as a support and was not included in the plan. Whether to exterminate the village or not is not in Lin's consideration. The threat from the village has come to a temporary end. After days of calm, the renovation and interior decoration of the Magic Tower have come to an end, and everything is finally back on track. The more troublesome part is the bathroom design that is not available in the world of mystery. After more than 10 years of living without a toilet, Lin has become so depressed that he wants to commit suicide. Now that we have the conditions, we are determined to create it. The faucet is directly connected to the water element plane, while the showerhead for shower goes through an additional heated magic circle. The major project lies in the burial of sewage pipelines, and in order to hide the pipelines in the walls, even energy channels have been replanned and deployed. Especially the burial of septic tanks. If it weren't for the fact that feces and urine have other uses in this world, Lin would have decided to directly connect to the ectopic surface and throw it at the head of some unlucky person. The restaurant on the first floor with a kitchen is considered the first room to be organized, apart from the core outdoor area. A refrigerator set up by Lin Huan using the frozen magic formation. All meats, except for marinated ones, can finally be stored in a place for freezing and refrigeration. The reason why refrigerators are not considered as commodities to come to the world of mystery and spend money on is because the cost of maintaining this item is unimaginably high, and even noble families can rarely afford it. Settling down in the Tower of the Great Sage also relied on the semi-permanent energy pool to sustain it. Lin couldn't even think about it before. And to build a basic energy pool, enough for the nobles to hire a small team of hunters to go hunting every day, so as to maintain it uninterrupted for 300 to 500 years. Just calculating the price ratio shows that there is no problem. If you want to sell it to other tower owners. All magicians have their own methods for preserving food, and the most brutal one is to set up a time stagnation magic array to keep vegetables and fruits always at the moment they are just picked. Seeing such data and the cost of materials for setting up a magic formation, Lin skipped all unrealistic ideas. After the wooden frame was re-nailed to the weapons room, it was enriched, mainly with weapons of all sizes for the master and disciple. When going out, in addition to the main weapon for weighing hands, some spare, long-range weapons and tools for dealing with special situations need to be prepared. Sometimes, to save one's life, it's all about these infrequently used things. However, since you live in the magic tower, there is no need to carry all these things with you. Like a crossbow taller than 2 young apprentices, flying claws for climbing, 2 wielded swords, Lin was thinking about the Qinglong Yenhua blade he had crafted, which was then despised by everyone who had seen it. After oiling and maintenance, all such items are placed in the weapon room. What's quite special is the captured demon-breaking dagger placed in a prominent position on the short weapon rack. Although not considered rare, demonic weapons are not ubiquitous special weapons. In addition to being different from ordinary magical weapons in terms of materials, the incantation patterns engraved on them also have considerable research value. So Lin kept it. There are several iron ingots in the corner of the casting room, as well as leather after removing the metal buckle from the leather armor. These are all spoils of war contributed by the invaders of the village, such as monsters and goblins that were easily eliminated during their previous journey to the Tower of the Great Sage, and they were re-melted. Due to the lack of other requirements and the inability to use the rudimentary and rough weapons and armor at an eye-catching level, all of them have been returned to the market. The remaining warehouse is filled with rice, wheat, and other miscellaneous items that were recently delivered by the caravan. On the second floor, 7 rooms have been repaired and there is a platform with half-rain cover. The library has been emptied because there are not many books left, so it is directly placed in the core room, next to Lin's bed, on the bookshelf against the wall. At present, the research room only has 2 large tables and 2 chairs. When venturing out, the portable grinding bowl used to prepare herbs is placed in the center of one of the tables, feeling lonely. The room shared by the 2 girls was well decorated according to their wishes. The bed, small cabinet and wardrobe are all set for 1 person, but the dressing mirror is shared by 2 people. Kaedu made a shelf with various strange specimens collected on top, including frogs, lizards, and bats that were said to be demon claws, a skull candlestick, and an unknown dried flower. Looking at those collections, Lin felt that this little apprentice had more potential to become a magician than himself. Harumi did manage several potted plants, including pitcher plants, flycatchers, still-growing carnivorous flowers, and even a mandala plant. Liking flowers and plants is very girlish, but liking these flowers and plants. Being a teacher is also speechless. 2 meditation rooms were carefully arranged by the master and disciple. There will be so many meditation rooms, which are not exclusive to each of the 2 disciples, but purely related to the magical principles of the lost world. At the beginning of his journey, Lin was very unfamiliar with many common-sense elements in the world of mesmerism. The basic elements of magic are not the 4 major elements of earth, water, fire, and wind, nor the 5 elements of wood, fire, earth, gold, and water, but the 8 types of power. Knowledge, power, authority, faith, wealth, dexterity, perception, mystery. There are also 8 corresponding deities. Magic, on the other hand, is the supernatural power exerted through the arrangement and combination of media after accumulating these 8 powers. The meditation room is a space that accelerates the accumulation of these 8 powers. After consuming the vast majority of savings, the 2 meditation rooms were rebuilt with different functions. A quiet room is a magic circle made of magic stones and special pigments mixed with magic materials, and specially designed candles are lit during use. Sitting meditation inside can greatly enhance the power of knowledge and belief, slightly enhance perception, and slightly enhance mystery. The other room mainly uses special incense and ringing wind chimes. Paired with a special dance, it can greatly enhance strength and wealth, slightly enhance authority and dexterity, and slightly enhance mysterious powers. And this kind of dance is similar to the Tai Chi practiced by Abe in the park when Lin was on Earth, slowly and smoothly moving his body, accompanied by incense and bells to enter a state of selflessness in meditation, in order to enhance his power. Both meditation rooms have 8 shrines for deities and their respective offerings, but this does not mean that wizards in the enchanted world must have faith. Like the ADD novels that Lin read when he was on Earth, the magic goddess constructs a magic web through which mages cast spells, but not necessarily believing in Mistra. The same goes for the mysterious world, where the 8 powers of the 8 deities are used by magicians to form magic, but not necessarily to believe in the 8 or any one deity. The belief in the world of mysticism has quite strict requirements, including initiation, baptism, prayer, precepts, and so on, because the gods truly exist. The miracles displayed from time to time are not like the tricks used by the gods on earth to deceive people. As for the offerings in front of the shrine in the meditation room, they are more like a means of trading for wizards. I use your power to cast spells, so I offer sacrifices that you like as a price. It does not mean that it has risen to the level of faith. In addition, there are many ways to decorate meditation rooms, all of which have different effects. However, considering the cost, Lin can only choose these 2 most popular meditation rooms. On the 2nd floor, 2 vacant rooms were also organized, along with an empty library, totaling 3 vacant rooms. Perhaps in the future, they can be used to decorate the 3rd, 4th, and 5th meditation rooms. On the 3rd floor, the ritual room was temporarily put on hold after clearing some remaining barrier magic formations that had lost their effectiveness. Because it has no immediate use, Lin is not in a hurry to fix this feature. A corner of the core room became the residential area of the forest. Generally speaking, as a wizard who is the tower owner, the living room and the core room will be separate and independent, and the commonality is that they both lie on the top layer of the magic tower. But considering practical application and a humble dream before crossing the river, it is such a wonderful thing to have a bed next to me that can collapse directly when my eyes are straight at work. So Lin didn't hesitate to place the bed in the core room. The console has undergone some modifications, transforming from a complex magic array paired with crystal balls to a futuristic flavor reminiscent of science fiction movies. As for the Mercury Mirror energy pool, which is suspended in mid-air and faces the control console upright, officially named Adderley Source Pool, there has been no change. Lin has no idea or demand for the renovation of the energy pool, so it remains unchanged. Furthermore, this energy pool can last for thousands of years without reducing its effectiveness, and its technology is also being used in this era. Not only is its stability highly recognized, but it is also capable of serving as a medium for the vast majority of types of magic. It is not an exaggeration to call it the most valuable part of the Tower of the Great Sage, despite its various advantages. As for that, Adderley, he was the builder of this magical tower, one of the members of the brave team that ended the Dark Age 1,000 years ago, and also the great sage of Adderley, who gave the tower its name. It is said that he is also one of the founders of the Mage Association and a promoter of modern magic technology and development. And the reputation of various ethnic groups that are too complex to carry. How much credibility there is inside varies from person to person. At least in the era of the explosion of knowledge and countless examples of ancestors who love to tamper with history, it is thought provoking to see how many legends or black and white history are true and how many are false. And the last open space that was transformed into a platform, reading www.uukangshu.net, is the focus of Lin's future research. Setting up a handmade astronomical telescope and setting various measuring scales, Lin gazed at the vast starry sky and 2 satellites in the darkness. A moon, like the Earth's moon, will have circular variations, but the difference is that it is close to dark red and particularly large. This means that the mysterious world star under the foot is particularly huge, or it means that the satellite is very close to the surface. The other satellite is black, but has a blue halo that does not change over time, like a big eye gazing at the world in the sky. It is unimaginable that such astronomical wonders have not been witnessed with one's own eyes. But beyond the two satellites, the magnificent Milky Way is the true research target. Astronomy is not only Lin's education before his travels, but also his interest. After arriving in the world of mystery, it seems to have become an alternative lifelong ambition. The 12 years of life experience, the phenomena observed by Lin, and the substances discovered, in the absence of supernatural powers, that is, magic intervention, are surprisingly similar to what can be observed and discovered on Earth. On a night when he looked up at the starry sky, he couldn't help but imagine whether the Earth, or, to put it more accurately, the Earth's sun, was one of them. When such fairy tale-like thoughts flashed by, it seemed as if they had taken root, deeply imprinted in Lin's thoughts. If we can indeed locate the sun on Earth, does that mean we can use teleportation magic to return to our long-awaited hometown? However, before that, Lin still had many difficulties to overcome. For example, when the core room appears on the energy pool, the row of red font messages. A team of inspectors will be dispatched in a few days to investigate a large number of homicide incidents in the villages under their jurisdiction. Chapter 9. Supervisors. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Every energy pool, regardless of its basic principles of construction, is nothing more than communicating with external forces or harboring some kind of great power, and then slowly extracting and releasing a large and chaotic 8 types of power. Then, the magic array is connected through an energy channel and transformed into an ordered and quantitative arrangement of powers, resulting in corresponding effects. As long as the energy consumed in an instant does not drain the energy pool and disrupt its balance, the energy pool can recover its upper limit of the total amount confined to the main plane over time. This is why each energy pool can theoretically operate semi-permanently. As long as the energy pool is constructed, it will leave a mark on the main world, perhaps a complex power code or a meaningless arrangement of words. Magicians can use this symbol to do some simple message transmission. This type of message transmission is real-time, but it also incurs significant costs. If it weren't for other tower owners with energy pools and knowing the symbols for transmitting the target tower, communication between wizards would generally rely mainly on letters. The only exception is the association responsible for managing wizards and magic towers, which often uses this method of message transmission, both for timeliness and to highlight the importance of messages. What does it sound like? Knowing a certain IP, I ran to their message board to leave a message. This was Lin's first idea when he heard about this feature. In fact, over the past decade of studying and researching magic, I have been learning how to use spiritual power or other mediums as a guide to arrange and combine 8 powers in order to unleash magic. Setting aside the factors of mental power and media, arranging and combining that part feels similar to writing computer programs while on Earth. The difference lies in the fact that the basic elements of Earth's computer software are binary zeros and ones, but upon entering the world of mystery, they are based on 8 powers, which means they start with 8 bits. Regarding this, Lin has gained a deep understanding during his years of studying magic. Upon arriving at the magic tower and seeing this super large circuit board, I was almost convinced of its feasibility. In the following days, Lin mainly drew star maps at night, and only observed stars at night. During the day, in addition to directing the magical progress of the 2 disciples, I focused on the computerized programming of the magic tower. But if you want to computerize the magic tower, you don't want to play games, relive the old dreams of Super Mario, or experience the unparalleled pleasure of mowing grass in the 3 kingdoms. You should know that Lin's work at night involves drawing star maps, which inevitably involves doing astrophysical calculations. The amount of calculation is huge and complex. If there is no computer assistance and only one person calculates by hand, the dream of going home is like a foam, gorgeous and untouchable. If the computerization of the magic tower can be achieved to the extent one imagines, then perhaps, it is really just that there is a slight possibility of returning to Earth. However, all these beautiful dreams must first deal with the following troubles, from the inspector team of the Mage Association. At least one big wizard's 5-member combat team is responsible for investigating the illegal activities or criminal evidence of the wizards. Has the power to arrest and suspend the powers of wizards, and can be killed in case of disagreement. It can be said that he is a police officer who also serves as a judge among magicians. The legal trial in the mesmerized world cannot be considered primitive, with various legal provisions and responsibilities clearly defined to a certain extent. However, in terms of evidence collection, it is still commendable. And this supervisory team should be the last resort of that village. Lin thought to himself and also inferred the other party's general routine. Given that there are not many magicians skilled in prophecy-type spells or summoning a soul of the deceased that clearly explains everything, and the cost is also considerable, these methods cannot become routine methods. To determine a crime, there is no doubt that both personal and physical evidence are required. When the whole village testified in unison, the magician, who was the tower owner, entered the village to slaughter the villagers, and the physical evidence was dozens of corpses hanging outside the tower. In terms of the state of the lost world, Lin's punishment is almost certain. The rest is to ask the parties if they have any defense, then strip the tower owner of their identity and bring them back to the association's court for trial. Or it could be resolved on the spot, bringing someone's head back to pay the order. If the parties involved are wrongly accused and willing to pay the price by hiring wizards who can prophesy or summon souls to prove their innocence, then the group of people who falsely accuse will face retaliation from the prosecutor on the charges of their false accusation. However, it is obvious that the magician who used to serve as the tower master of the great sage did not have such financial resources, and now Lin does not either. However, Lin did not sit idly by because the demands of the inspectors were only to provide sufficient evidence and did not necessarily require any methods to achieve this goal. So for a young person from the 21st century who has traveled across the globe, there are quite a few means and they have long been prepared. Who calls their biological father a lawyer? Even if he doesn't exploit legal loopholes, he must know how to protect himself. While waiting, on a peaceful programming afternoon, Harumi, who was supposed to be practicing magic in the research room, hurriedly ran into the core room and said, "Teacher, the guest is here." Swinging the trackball on the right side of the control console, the mirror of the energy pool was changed to the perspective outside the tower. I didn't see anyone, but there were 2 fireworks producing smoke in the sky not far away. The first one was red, white, and blue-colored smoke, and the second one was yellow smoke. Some special identity groups will use this method to inform others of their arrival. The first 3-colored smoke represents the division of the Magician Association to which Lin belongs, the second smoke represents the identity of the inspector. So the people who came are very obvious. Halfway through writing the program, Lin instructed his disciple beside him, "Go notify Kaya, let's go to the first floor together to welcome the guests." The open door of the magic tower soon welcomed 5 magicians, among whom 3 had 2 golden tassels embroidered on their robes, telling the identity of their great magicians. The person who enters the door is without exception, with various magical and spiritual lights shining all over their body, representing that everyone will be able to use all the defense methods and auxiliary magic on themselves. The weapons are also placed in the weighing position and can be removed at any time. One of them did not carry a staff or sword, but instead 10 fingers were shrouded in mist of different colors. These skilled magicians are well aware of the significance of entering the magic tower controlled by others. Nature is not unprepared, naively thinking that relying solely on the reputation of a supervisor can scare a wizard who can become the tower master. If there really is a fight, it is expected that our side will lose a few manpower, but they are also confident that they can definitely defeat the tower owner here. However, the three masters and disciples who stood on the first floor to greet dispelled the doubts of the inspectors, as it represented goodwill from the Lord of the Magic Tower. For them, breaking through numerous traps and going up to the third floor, then killing the magician who is leaning against the energy pool and casting spells almost infinitely, is a completely different matter from slaughtering a magician within their line of sight. Willing to reveal one's true identity indicates that the other party has no intention of starting a fight. But the inspectors still did not let their guard down. They led the big wizard, who was covered in tendons and flesh, and said, "Your Excellency, I believe the previous information has already informed us of our purpose. Please cooperate. Of course, gentlemen, please follow me to the core room. I will present the images as evidence." Seeing that all 5 supervisors nodded in agreement, Lin said, "Please." He took the 2 apprentices up the stairs first. Upon arriving at the core room on the 3rd floor, Lin walked straight to the control console and started operating. "I completely don't care about the inspectors standing behind me in a hidden encirclement formation." After relaxing his guard, there have been instances where the tower owner once again killed the intruder. So Lin didn't care about whether the other person was impolite or not. Just explaining the action you are going to take to avoid misunderstandings. 2 apprentices stepped aside and waited in front of a group of formal wizards and great wizards, who didn't even have the right to speak. Lin, on the other hand, is proficient in operating the results of programming in the past few days. The small screen of light and shadow that appears in front of the console at UU reading www.uukunshu.net is synchronously displayed on the mirror energy pool. Appearing for the first time in front of outsiders, the first web browser of Minecraft has opened. Although there are only the function buttons and website columns at the top, the content at the bottom is blank, without a search engine page, let alone the homepage of any entrance website. In fact, in just over 10 days, after completing the communication protocol and establishing the domain name server and web server, Lin felt that he had performed exceptionally well. The remaining time is to create an additional forum website. Speaking of which, the characters in the world of mystery belong to Pinyin characters, which is much easier for software and programs built mainly by Westerners to restore the Earth. Many concepts can be directly applied without thinking about how to transform. After entering short text in the URL column, the page immediately imports the only completed website. The title is the big forum word, and the top right corner has 4 simple functions: registration, login, search, and explanation. There are 2 discussion areas below, namely, Tower of the Great Sage and Miscellaneous. Directly touch the light screen in front of the console with your fingers, enter the Miscellaneous discussion area, and then click on the only discussion string. The villagers attack the Tower of the Great Sage. The beginning and end, which contains 2 video files. The film is divided into 9 squares, with 8 scenes inside the Great Sage Tower and 1 facing the outside of the tower's main entrance. The first segment of the film is the first wave of 3 village representatives, starting from entering the Tower of the Great Sage, speaking ill of themselves in the core room, and then being killed. The second video depicts villagers carrying torches out of the forest at night and being locked on the first floor of the Magic Tower. A power shock paralyzes them to the point where toxic mist fills the air. Following that was a long time until early morning, when Lin came forward to purify the air and repair the knife. The entire process is accompanied by voice, but there are no subtitles. Chapter 10. Portable Magic Web. You are listening at novelfull.audio. As early as the second segment of the film was filled with a goose yellow mist that filled the entire first floor space, and only the outline of a person could be vaguely seen, Lin explained that it would take a long time to see the scene of the knife attack. The 5 inspectors each restrained their preparations for attack, retaining only some defensive measures. Even when Lin asked, "Do we need to verify the identity of the deceased in the film?" most inspectors only pursed their lips and were not interested. Anyway, the world of mystery is a class-oriented world, and the identities of wizards and ordinary people vary. Even if the world does not allow arbitrary killing, the power of life and death in the magic tower is a common bottom line for all magicians, even without the identity of the tower owner. As long as a person dies in the tower, even if those ordinary people are innocent and have grievances, no magician will hold the tower owner accountable. As guardians of maintaining the order of wizards in the world of mystery, they are even more faithful in supporting such principles. If a deceased person has a relative of a magician, please seek revenge on your own. The association and inspectors will not intervene in the private grudges. Compared to the right and wrong between the two parties involved, the inspectors were more interested in everything Lin showed. They gathered in front of the control console, behind Lin. Leading the way was the muscular wizard Greenwin, who looked more like a berserker than a magician. His eyes lit up and he stared straight at the mirror of the energy pool, asking, "Is this the magic of time reversal?" In the world of mystery, there is magic that can display distant scenes, but it is a real time image that can even communicate with each other. From Lin's perspective, it means achieving video dialogue. But to see the past or future, it involves spells of prophecy and time. Those who can achieve certain results in these two types of magic are worthy of admiration from others. That is to say, ignore the future that has not yet happened, for the past that has already occurred, this world still cannot achieve the functions of recording and playback. This is a ridiculous technological process. Indeed, it is not scientific at all. After muttering a few words, Lin still had to respect the great magician who was questioning, politely explaining, "This is not a time reversal. It's by monitoring the magic formation," pointing to a prominent and flattened white crystal at the corner ceiling of the core room, with a small magic formation shining light blue on the base. "Save everything that happened as an image file. Then, when needed later, play it back." As Lin spoke, he cut the footage into actual surveillance footage. In the core room, it is the silhouette of everyone gathered in front of the control console. In order to showcase everything, Lin deliberately walked up to the surveillance crystal and waved his hand. Just as it actually appears on the surveillance screen. Then return to the control panel and bring up the scene of waving just now, showing it to the inspectors for viewing. Before becoming law enforcers, they were also magicians who sought out all knowledge in the world. So I couldn't help but feel curious about the novelty that Lin has shown. Next is a series of problem bombings. Being constantly asked about things that belong to common sense on Earth, and even some that exist like breathing air, Lin felt powerless for a moment, but had to patiently explain. After all, the other party is a supervisor, so it's so easy for them to find something to make themselves uncomfortable. So it's better not to make the guests unhappy. However, a sudden question still troubled Lin. "Can you provide us with the images to bring back, submit them to our superiors, and keep records?" It sounds like a request, but in reality it is a command. The duty of inspectors is to leave reports and relevant evidence while completing tasks. And these pieces of evidence must also be re-examined in the future when there are doubts. The problem is that these image files are attached to the energy pool as the core and combined with the entire magic tower as hardware to be preserved. I can't see any chips, processors, memory, let alone hard drives here. Of course, there is no way to know data such as processor frequency and available storage space. I have thought about using magic stones as a medium to store and use, but I need to save a video file. Several high-quality magic stones from Lin have already been destroyed. He couldn't bear to use his own wealth to conduct experiments to measure the maximum storage limit of each quality of magic stones. Because as long as it exceeds, it will explode, without even the words indicating insufficient usage space. After explaining the dilemma he faced, Lin Duozui asked, "Do you have a purple-level magic stone that you can try?" Looking at the 5 people whose faces had collapsed, Lin also knew what the answer would be. The level of magic stones ranges from low to high, consisting of 7 types. Red, orange, yellow, green, blue, and purple. But it doesn't mean that there are only 7 types of magic stones, but it refers to the magical spirit light contained in it, whose spectral wavelength is in the visible light range, transitioning from red to purple, and then roughly divided into 7 intervals. A medium-sized magic stone vein can excavate purple-grade magic stones, which are cut into standard-sized hexahedral pillars, but only a few 3 to 5 pieces. So one can imagine its preciousness and high price. Lin usually only uses red radiance level magic stones, and the few ones that explode belong to the top-grade orange ingots, which are close to the yellow spiritual light magic stones. Just thinking about it makes Lin's mouth twitch. Understand that others cannot easily bring out that high-end product. Moreover, even if a purple transformation level magic stone is actually taken out, the film file can be smoothly transferred to the magic stone, and it still has no effect when taken elsewhere. On Earth, anyone who can buy a DVD movie and see it with just their eyes must rely on a player or computer. So Lin just casually asked. "I have other ways to get everyone to bring back the film and hand it over," Lin said, whistling and calling out to his little apprentice. "Harumi." He pointed to his ear. The understanding blonde girl immediately took off the earring pendant and quickly handed it to her teacher's hand, but her expression was extremely reluctant. Looking at his disciple's expression, Lin couldn't help but feel amused and comforted. "Don't think too much, this one is only for testing. I will help you make a formal one later." The girl who received the promise immediately changed her mood and happily returned to her original position, standing still. Lin then took off the pendant of the earring with his hands, which was a small red shining magic stone that had been divided and polished. "Hold the red stone in your hand. The secret spell activated is very simple. Forum." Immediately, 2 water mirrors condense in front of you, one standing and the other flat, which are the functions of the screen and keyboard. Lin waved his palm, controlling the water mirror on the screen to zoom in and face everyone. Following the same steps, he logged into the forum webpage and said, "Using a magic stone as a carrier, you can browse the forum page. Simultaneously enter the partition of the Tower of the Great Sage. There are several discussion threads inside, with titles such as, Beginner's Magic, First Ring Magic Explanation, Second Ring Magic Explanation, Third Ring Magic Explanation, and a, Kaya, there's such a cute little dog. What the hell is this?" Looking at the final title, Lin himself felt inexplicable. Curiously, upon entering, 2 little disciples were discussing a litter of little puppies they had encountered in the wilderness. One said it was so cute and wanted to bring it back to raise. The other responded without hesitation, occasionally asking questions about where and how to raise them. After a rough review, Lin reluctantly withdrew from the discussion session and turned to his 2 disciples, saying, "I'm not talking to you anymore. What's on top is the materials you need to learn. It's for you to read any time in your free time. It's not for chatting." The 2 girls were submissive. Looking at that expression, Lin knew in his heart that the 2 of them had not even listened. Just because the guests are still there, we can only put the 2 disobedient girls aside for now. Re-click the discussion string of Beginner of Magic, and a large amount of text content is exactly the same as the book of the same name provided by the Magician Association. This is an introductory book provided by the Association to Magicians for Apprenticeship, and it is also a must-have for every apprentice to learn. Lin lightly tapped the screen water mirror with his fingers, slid slightly, and browsed through the second, third, and even later pages of content. Saying, the magic stone carrier can browse a large amount of pure text content without instantly depleting its energy. According to the characteristic that when the magic stone is stationary, it will automatically recover a small amount of energy, so the red radiance level magic stone is sufficient as a carrier without much consumption. If you want to browse images, the energy consumption will be greater than the automatic recovery. As for the movie file, it cannot be opened, and when opened, it will exhaust its energy and the magic stone will be scrapped. Unless the magic stone level is high enough and has sufficient energy, but I still don't know how high it will be. Next, Lin placed the magic stone in his hand on the left side of the console, on the special octagonal and 8-pointed star magic array. He continued, If you all want to watch the video after returning to the association, the best way is to use the association's energy pool. He pushed the screen water mirror towards the mirror energy pool, and the forum page covered the original monitoring screen. Click on the video link again and you will be able to open and watch it smoothly. Ultimately, what is stored in the magic stone is a program similar to an operating system. And in the mesmerized world, there are no issues with wireless or wired connectivity. As long as it is not in a forbidden area, you can go online. The internet speed of UU reading www.uukangshu.net is also not considered, only the download traffic will be limited by the energy contained in the magic stone itself. When the energy of the magic stone is depleted, the thing becomes invalid. When used in conjunction with the magic tower energy pool, Lin has not yet tested where the limit lies. This kind of display is undoubtedly shocking for people with medieval cultural level. The most important thing is that in known magic, which includes lost but recorded, and does not include some undisclosed secrets, there is no long-distance real-time communication, and low-cost magic that is almost non-existent. Although the mesmerized world can achieve similar effects to video calls, the limitations are not too strict, and it must rely on the huge energy of the energy pool to achieve similar effects. Now, after questioning the communication distance, although Lin has not actually tested it, this system itself is based on the original use of magic tower symbols to achieve long-distance message function and then developed. So it is a reasonable inference that this system can be used in magical places. In addition, forums can store book content, images, and videos. In this world where there is no printing technology and knowledge is mainly transmitted through oral and hand copying, how much impact can such tools bring? When they thought about all of this, the inspectors opened their mouths one by one, staring straight at it. When Lin signaled to allow the guests to operate freely, the 5 towering wizards almost got into a ball. Perhaps it was the difference in seniority and combat effectiveness between them that caused a fight to end before it even began. The 2 magicians with lower generations touched their noses and stepped aside first. After 3 great wizards were gesturing whose biceps were larger, the other 2 could only retreat. However, they did not watch others operate with keen eyes, but surrounded Lin, which was another bombing of problems. Asking someone made them feel a bit overwhelmed.